the VAR discussion, well, there is an element of people call for respect inside this game and show very little of it. People make errors. Some errors are unacceptable. Some errors are manageable. VAR has a constant ingredient, which is human interaction. Some of the errors that were made on Saturday are incompetence. We concur with that view. And that needs to be addressed and needs to be identified, and people need to be consequenced. And the head of the refereeing executive, which is now Howard Webb, needs to move this argument along quickly, fastly, and communicate properly. And that's what he's beginning to do. But unfortunately, like other parts of this country where people start to unwind things, whether it's Brexit or people's relationship with the truth, there's a narrative that gets built under, which is actually hiding an agenda. People like Danny and Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer didn't want VAR in the first place. Yet they're part of the background noise that created the need for VAR in the first place, because they would never leave off with referees.
You're generalising,
because I
never did.
Yeah, Danny,
no, I didn't,
did.
Simon.
You did.
I'm not a manager. I didn't need
you
to.
You did. In the media.
I've always loved football. And since my media career started, I have never once, ever talked about the need for technology.
You didn't listen to what I said. What I said was the constant refusal to accept that referees on a football pitch will make mistakes has brought us to this point where VAR is a necessity. So you guys that are so vociferous, that make more mistakes than people can shake a stick at, don't allow other people to make mistakes. So you brought in this necessity for the game to move itself into a different direction.
How have we brought it in?
Because the constant pressure that referees have found themselves on, to the point...
By whom?
By the media and by the participants in the media.
But they're still under that pressure.
And of course, yes, I know, because you won't shut up. Because people are still carrying on.
Because they can't do their jobs properly.
Well, yeah, and there's an element.
It's worse for them now than it was before.
There isn't. No, that's not true.
It is. They are getting more hammered now than they ever have.
And the problem is with guys like you is what you do is you take sentiment and you supersede fact with it. The facts of the matter are, VAR, whether we like it or not, has made more right decisions, increased the level.
You're being fed a narrative that's absolute crap.
It's not.
It's crap.
It's not.
The amount of goals that get taken. Yep, they've. The numbers, if you had to sit there and go through every game, then of course they're going to say they got X amount right, because they're looking at everything. That's not to say the game's better, Simon.
44 more goals.
You're talking about... they don't class taking goals away for an inch of offside.
Well, offside is offside.
No, offside wasn't brought into football for that, Simon.
No.
Originally, when football is an entertainment.
Offside was brought in to allow goals
for people to stop cheating and be
offside.
Not by an inch or a toe.
What you want to do is you want to define by the very nature of what your perspective is, what offside looks like. And I do agree that it's become very anal. But the reasons why is because guys like you and managers have now gotten so vociferous about the expectations that they have of referees. Referees were getting death threats, because managers and players were going out vilifying them, but that's what was happening.
It's 100% right, Danny.
Jim, the statements come out of your mouth is the thing that people who like VAR get obsessed with, and they're missing the big question.
But I don't like VAR. I don't think it's
wonderful. All right.
I think it's a solution.
Anyone who's in support of it, they try and go about this. More decisions correct.
I'm in the support of trying to improve the game and give referees as many aids as
okay,
they
let me ask
possibly
you a question. And you can ask this to any of your friends and family, all walks of life. This ain't just about me. This is just my belief. Has VAR enhanced the viewing experience for those supporters, either going to the game or on TV, especially going to the games, they're the important ones? Has it made it better for them? The answer, categorically, I hear is no.
But that's not why it was brought in.
No. I'm not asking why it's brought in.
We're going to bring in VAR
Jim,
because it's going to enhance the viewing experience. That's
hold
not
on.
why it was brought in.
Football is entertainment, Jim. It's based on the funding for football comes from the desire to watch it, the entertainment that it brings.
West Ham thought they got the winner on Saturday against Chelsea. Declan Rice was given offside. Now, if VAR hadn't been there, West Ham would have been given the winner on Saturday.
So you think the linesman...
Would that be right? Would that be appropriate?
It's irrelevant, because what you're suggesting
to suit your argument,
No, I'll come back to it then. But you're suggesting that the linesman got it wrong and he wouldn't have put his flag up if VAR wasn't there. Do you think that the encouragement for linesmen to keep their flags down because they have VAR changes the way they're lining?
Well, you've gone further. You're not having VAR at all.
No, I'm not.
And on kick-off, you called for this.
The simplest way to gauge interest in that question would be to do a vote from all the players of Premier League clubs and all the managers and coaches and see how it comes back. And I guarantee it would come back positive to get rid of.
Call for a vote.
Well, it's not going to happen.
And the players should decide its future. I mean, that ain't going to happen, is it? So
No, but
it's too ridiculous.
It wouldn't
for
happen.
words
It wouldn't
to even suggest that. Yet you suggested it.
Well, it's ridiculous.
So you're talking about nonsense coming out of our mouths.
It's ridiculous.
VAR was not.
Jim, you
brought
can't
in
keep talking
to
and saying
enhance-
things and not expect and
to
repeating yourself
enhance
and not
the
expect to
viewing
reply.
spectacle.
You just keep repeating yourself.
So why was it brought in?
Why was what brought in? VAR to try and get more decisions
let
correct.
me think. VAR.
VAR was brought in to try and get more decisions correct because people are obsessed with perfection, which you'll never get with anything that's run by humans.
And evidence base tells you that it's done that, right?
To a tiny degree.
But what you're saying is, and I do agree with you.
But I haven't even got
something from the game has been lost. But the tragedy of it is something from the game was being lost on a weekly basis with people making accusations about the ineffectivity of linesmen and referees.
That was enhanced by
I know,
social
but
media,
but
by
the
time,
game-
by...
Dan, the game's changed. And we have to embrace it. We have to accept that we went from 2 points to 3 points.
You don't have to do anything.
We do because we've got 360-degree access to watching football. Every angle's being scrutinised, and referees are being put in an awfully invidious position. Now, do I agree with you that there should be this elimination of incompetence? Should we hold these officials to higher standards? Incompetence you can eliminate. Yes, you can. Get people in position that aren't incompetent and ensure that they're trained properly and maintained properly and managed properly. That's Howard Webb's job. The challenge for me is that doesn't matter what this system does, and even when it proves your point wrong, right, which is that there are more outcomes that are to the benefit of a game that can be won or lost by decisions that get gotten right, you have made your mind up. And the reasons why you've made your mind up is because it takes some spontaneity out of the game. It takes somebody, and I understand that. And somewhere along the line, it has to get some way of embracing technology to embrace it in such a way that it doesn't lose that vitality of the game that you like. But the problem is if you're going to continue with this narrative and others around you, that everything about it is wrong and ignore the facts that they get more right than they get wrong, then it's never going to be able to change because you're never going to adapt to the circumstance of changing your mind, irrespective of the evidence that's put in front of you.
But I did open my mind to it when I went to Russia and I experienced it and how effective it was there, apart from one decision really that people talked about.
So what was different about that than this then?
Well, it was obviously the way it was used, the way it was run. Yeah. But unfortunately, and I have give it time. I've said on here in recent months that actually, okay, it's here to stay. Maybe they could do this better. Look at ways that, we talked about ex-players going in there. We talked about lots of different scenarios. But it's getting worse. It's not getting better. And the fact is, and this thing, I've had to take away this thing about correct and incorrect decisions because we've always had that. And we could look at the percentages saying they're getting more right. They should because they've got cameras everywhere. The fact is that the experience of watching football, especially for younger people, and the thing you talk about euphoria of goals and those moments.
What have younger people got to do with it?
Well, because when you're a young person, you go to football and then you're in it. When I first went, one of the best moments of my life as a young man was the first time I went to Liverpool and experienced that euphoria of a goal with my dad. I sit and watch games with my 12-year-old son.
But if you're a young man now, Dan, it's priced in. Your experience changes.
Yeah, it does.
When you watch football,
but I don't think it's as good.
2 points a game.
But I don't think it's as good.
And it was different.
I get it, but I don't think it's as good.
There's one of our listeners, Sam. VAR has enhanced the viewing. It's more entertainment and emotion, not less.
Well,
there was an irony, but there is an element of theatre.
There's a suspense to it.
I think that's the minority view, not the majority.
But Danny, my contention
and you've chosen that, but they're probably 12 on there.
What more can they do? They got 2 glaring ones wrong at the weekend.
4.
And heads have rolled.
Yeah.
Heads have rolled publicly. And I was on the show yesterday with Simon. So-and-so has stood down. He's not, Lee Mason stood down. So he's not now going to be involved in the match he was going to. He's now not involved. Bosh, he's down. Lee Mason's maybe driving about thinking, oh God.
I think
I bungled that one at the weekend.
Yeah.
I hear them on talkSPORT saying, and they're right. I've been shifted. I've been taken off it. What more can they do?
I think probably and I don't know if it's possible yet, but it should be somewhere down the line with the technology we've got. I think the only thing that could really really make a difference to all of these arguments is automated offsides.
I agree.
That would become really quick, and like back
more technology.
Well, it's the same, isn't it? It's just more enhanced, if you like.
Yeah,
it's the only way you could lose. My argument of those euphoric moments, that constant waiting for, is it a goal, is it not? Seeing people not celebrate, seeing players not celebrate a goal because they're not sure.
Maybe it wasn't a goal.
But still, that's not what you love in football.
See,
is
all
it?
too often we've been celebrating goals that should never have stood.
I think
that's a fact.
Yeah, but that's been the.
Do you understand why VAR was brought in?
Of course I do.
So if you understand why VAR was brought in, you must understand the reasons for it. You might not necessarily applaud some of the losses from the game. If you understand why it was brought in, then you must understand the necessity for things to have evolved.
Yeah.
Right. So with that in mind, the constant narrative that VAR is the enemy, which is how it's being positioned, and rather than an embracing of a situation, accepting of the facts over the sentiment that you don't like certain things, and then looking at the evolution of it. It's not getting worse.
It is.
It's not getting worse.
It's getting worse.
And another thing, whilst we're having the subject that I know is a soundbite from you. Half the players themselves don't even know the bleeding rules.
I know.
So there couldn't be a vote.
Well,
from
because
them,
the rules
could they?
change
Right?
the rules
and that's
change.
fine. Read the handbook. You've got plenty of free time on your hands. If you want to understand the rules of the game,
No.
in.
The rules aren't relevant to the incompetency of the people in charge of VAR.
But incompetence is the exception, not the rule. Surely you can see that.
But it's
And
becoming
incompetence
not
that's-
that way.
Incompetence that's hidden behind a veneer, like we see in politics, right, isn't allowed in football. It's now got a leadership group that are saying, "Vroom." Straight away, we'll communicate, we'll transmit, and we will consequence.
And we'll be
we'll
transparent.
look to evolve.
Do you think the referees, especially only Premier League level, because obviously VAR we haven't got any other leagues, but do you think the referees are better or worse because of VAR? I think they're worse because they are so indecisive because they know they've got VAR to fall on. They aren't reffing games, and I know you've
I agree.
I know you've talked about this before, and they should be better and have the courage of convictions. But I think VAR is affecting them, as well as the viewing spectacle and the entertainment levels.
That's why I think Webb's been brought in, because I think Webb is a leader and will.
But you can't polish turds, can you?
No, you can't polish turds. But what you can say is a culture of responsibility and accountability, and a culture of leadership. If you've got a leader at the top, there's a distinct possibility you'll have leaders beneath them. So he's a leader, whether you like him or you don't, and I can take him or leave him, but I can see the strength of the character.
Oh, strong character.
Strong character. So then he will recruit strong characters. He'll bring a strong culture in, and he'll make these referees understand that on the pitch, not the judge dread mentality, but you are the law, and have that responsibility and have the courage of your convictions. And I do think they should be juxtaposed with VAR. I think the guys on the pitch should call for VAR rather than VAR call for them. That's what I think they've gotten wrong, that the guys on the pitch should call for VAR when they think they've got uncertainty, and then use it as an aid memoir rather than a default setting. I've always felt that was the case.
My contention is, Danny, it's too easy for the pundits. Like on Match of the Day now, it's too easy just to have a swipe. And Simon's right. Like, Shearer, yourself, right. I've got to say, it's too easy just to say, I'm not having it. I'm not having it.
But
VAR is not working. It's got to be scrapped.
I don't think many are as vociferous as me.
I didn't hear anyone on Match of the Day say that Suchek incident. I tell you what, that's glaringly wrong. And the guy in charge of the VAR duty that day, Neil Swarbrick, he should be taken off VAR for the next match.
Well, he's in charge.
We never hear that.
He's in charge of the others.
We don't hear that.
He's their main man.
No, but we don't hear that. All we hear is scrap it. It's not working, scrap it.
I don't think everybody. I think it's unfair.
And you guys can take in a game and watch it, and then about 6 hours later, you're giving your views.
I think it's unfair to say all pundits have my view. They don't. That's not right. I'm strong on it because I believe No, you'd be surprised because I have these arguments and debates a lot.
Give us an example of someone that doesn't, because I can't think one off the top of my head.
Well, quite a few of them, but it's not. We can go through all the names and I can say yes or no either way. But
that'd be awfully boring.
Exactly. The overriding factor for me is that the decisions, and especially some of the even easy ones, aren't being dealt with by good enough people. So therefore, we're going to continually have this debate. Now, I understand what you're saying.
But in the past, so many wrong decisions were made, and as Simon said, many more right are being made as opposed to wrong.
But again, we're going down the narrative.
So that's why it's here.
I know why it's here.
To stay.
But we're obsessing with the difference in percentage of correct and incorrect decisions, rather than the experience.
But that's your bugbear.
Yeah,
and I understand that, but that's not the same argument. But they're two different arguments. Danny.
I didn't say they were the same argument.
So you've got to separate them.
I do.
You've got to turn around and say, let's look at the effectivity of VAR as an ongoing concept.
It's minimal. The benefits are minimal.
But you don't have that statistic. I do have the statistics. And you don't like the argument because it doesn't suit yours. But your main thrust and your real soul doubling down perspective is it takes away the spirit of the game, and everything else is the fruit of a poison tree. It doesn't matter that it gets more right than it gets wrong, as far as you're concerned.
Yeah,
it doesn't. That's incidental.
But it has to. It's impossible for it.
We
not
need the emotion of the game. Let that
goal
that shouldn't have stood. Stay with us. We're in the throes of this. We're back after this. The Premier League have said this morning on refereeing mistakes, the Premier League sets high standards and is disappointed that PGMOL fell below the expectations they've got of it last weekend. As a result, the Premier League requested the PGMOL review and explain a number of incidents from the recent round of matches. We support their views on addressing these issues to improve performances going forward. It's a kind of hands-up job from the PGMOL. And they're like, all right, yeah, we didn't cover ourselves in glory there. So it's got to get better. And I tell you what, we'll try and get better.
Well, that's
so. In order for them to get better, what do you offer them? in terms of how about you go about it like this instead of giving it scrap it, which isn't going to happen. What's your 3-point plan?
Well, I think the main point would be that you have to allow Howard Webb to lead, like Simon says, and see if he can be really decisive and definitive in the way he wants it to work. And then you can analyse that somewhere down the line and say, he's not doing a good job. We have to give him that opportunity because it's not going anywhere.
You've already decided you're analysing it further down the line that he's not doing a good job.
Well, hopefully you'll see an improvement and you'll see it used better. Because that's all you can hope for. But in terms of exactly how he does it, he's just got to be really robust and really definitive.
Right. You be Howard Webb for a moment. So what are you going to do?
Well, you have to create consistency with the way the referees and assistant referees see incidents, so you don't get this contrast. I mean, on top of that, of course, you have to eradicate the ridiculous errors, which is missing something or drawing the line on the wrong person. You can't have Lee Mason missing the offside. He didn't even see it because he spent 3 minutes on the first phase rather than the second phase, and he panicked and made a decision without seeing it. We know that. You can't have that. That's complete incompetence. So he has to really be definitive in what you look for first. These are the points. You have to have you have to have how many boxes you need to be ticked before you make the decision. That needs to be definitive, down, done. Then you have to make it really clear. And the laws don't help the officials, I have to say. The laws don't help because some of them are so wide, open-ended is the word, where you and I could read because I have to read the rules a lot when we're on doing the punditry, and you could interpret them differently. Let's just say that. You and I could interpret the words on the page differently, and that's got to change. That will help them enormously. But it's a big job. And I get the point. Look, if we didn't have VAR, you're still going to get the moaning and the whinging from people like me about the bad decisions, right? That's just life. That's our job to talk about bad decisions. The fact is, which is worse? Which is worse? Is it worse to be moaning about referees making normal bad decisions like we always did for decades? Or is it worse to be doing what we're doing now? That's a debate. My biggest bugbear at the moment is it's detracting from the spectacle and the entertainment that football's supposed to give. And it's making football worse for the viewer than better, in my opinion. And I think most people who love football adhere to my view.
I think there's some error in that argument. It's not being borne out by eyes on a prize. It's not being borne out by full houses and tendencies and people watching games on television.
Correct.
But it is an erosion of people's enjoyment. Because ultimately, and you could say that erosion of people's enjoyment was moving from standing to all-seater stadiums. Things evolve. Which is better? The constant argument that decisions cost people livelihoods, jobs, managerial positions, outcomes in games, or an element of compromise that just a degree of spontaneity in situations inside the game are lost a little bit. I would advocate, I wrote a column in 2005 about this quaint little thing in football called jumpers for goalposts, where every other sport in the world embraces technology and evolves, and how we think the world's biggest game thinks it's quaint to make decisions on the back of a fag packet with one guy in the middle of a pitch being asked to make decisions at high speed without the tools to do it. I'm in the camp that VAR needs to improve. I'm in the camp that people need to embrace it and accept it and look for solutions. I'm in the camp that is this. If you've got a ruler that's big, right? We're there with VAR. We're there with that VAR. So they're not managing that part. They're only managing that part.
We're on radio.
They're only managing the difference between the end of the ruler and say 2 centimetres from the top. So we're halfway. We're 90% there. So Howard Webb's job is to manage the exception. These guys, with respect to Danny, only focus on the exception. They don't focus on the rule because the exception proves their theory that they don't like it in the first place. The rest of the rules are not interesting. Is it an excuse that VAR isn't functioning at its highest level? Is it an excuse that incompetence... You can't legislate for incompetence. That's not human error. That's incompetence and ineptitude. Right.
Let's hope we're not talking about Arsenal-Manchester City tomorrow morning.
Please not.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.